Today I want to start a series of videos that will make all the YouTube D&D, writing, and general world building nerds all come together and go, yes! So, you want a world build. That's cool. But we've got some work to do. Now the biggest thing to set your world up for interesting peoples, cultures, and powers: geography. And for the last one, you specifically need strategic geography. World powers do not come about often. If they did, there would be utter madness. But when they do, it's often because the seat of all the institutions of power come from a place that makes it so they don't have to worry about stuff threatening that power. You see what I'm getting at? Strategic geography means power. This is why if the US falls apart suddenly, New Mexico is not going to become the next dominant power of the continent. Sorry, New Mexico, you just don't have the strategic geography that is so important. There are a few things to consider when actually talking about this. Now remember, guys, nothing in history has ever had all of these, and the further you go in time, the less important having these things actually becomes. Also, let's focus on cities, because historically they have served as the seats of power as opposed to nation-states or people. Well, I guess they were kings, but both nation-states and kings needed cities to run everything, so let's just focus on that. So with that out of the way, what does a city have that makes it able to create emperors, culture, and ultimately an interesting world with interesting history? Well, first things first, it needs to be able to sustain itself over a long period of time. If a city can't do that, it's not going to be very powerful. So you need things like food, water, shelter, and not that many natural disasters, because Pompeii's not a very powerful city anymore. Second, it's easier for large civilizations to rise when they are on certain continents that exhibit certain attributes. Now we'll talk about that in a later video because it's a little too complex for this one. Third of all, you need good resources that go beyond the ability to sustain itself, and you need workable animals that can make labor much easier for the populace. Also, it's good for a city to have defensible geography. That is huge. A city can also benefit from a lot of trade. There are several ways for a city to be able to manage and control trade, but the more it does that, the better off it will be financially. Now these next two don't tie in with geography that much, so I'm not going to cover them in this series, but I will eventually. Now they are religious or cultural influence. Now religious and culture can have a huge impact on how well a city does, and another one is other civilizations around them. That's huge because it allows for looting, trade, war, and the spread of ideas, and all of those are massive to a city's development. Now both of those can be detrimental. For religious or cultural influence, just look at medieval Europe. And for other civilizations around them, just look at any time a civilization was destroyed by war. So if you look at this list, most of what separates the great civilizations from the meh ones is just like mountains, rivers, trees, a bunch of boats, or a place to put that bunch of boats, and lastly some good old-fashioned dirt. But remember, you don't get cool art from people who are being pillaged and are starving. And you don't get empires from people that don't know how to actually get to the places that they want to conquer. Geography is what makes or breaks civilizations. So when you're building a world, you need to have places with better resources and better surroundings than others. I'm assuming that you want there to actually be world powers and whatnot, so if you're not, don't listen to any of this. That'd actually be pretty cool. An entire world of tiny villages that don't have any power or capability to expand beyond what they have now. The whole world would have to be the same homogeneous features, but that'd be a pretty cool setting for something. It'd be like Mad Max without the oil rigs. Anyways, stick around and we'll talk about how to make your empires big or scary or awesome. But most importantly, we're gonna make your civilizations realistic and believable.